Hey everyone, welcome to Nailed It, a podcast powered by Parker Huggett.
Welcome to DEAN XUEREB on our next episode, which is episode 3 of Nailed It in season 2. We look forward to posting this on National Construction Day, November 30th. Couldn't think of a better guest. When I think of Dean, I think of the future of the field and how he loves to give back. Just a high level, Dean has been with PCL Construction for 29 years, where he's progressed from superintendent duties to field operations manager with Canada's largest general contractor, whose annual revenue is circa 9 billion Canadian dollars. Dean has mentored some of the brightest field management professionals, but also constantly thinking about how to give back at all levels of the field. Big warm welcome, Dean.
Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks for the great introduction, and super happy to be here whenever I get an opportunity to talk about the uniqueness and the advantages that occur in our construction market. Can't think of a better thing to do than have a conversation about how do we get more people to engage in this community. So thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So outside of my warm introduction, could you please share your unique professional story?
Sure, love to. And it is actually really unique now when you think about it. Here I am, an eager high school graduate, looking forward to my entry into university, planning to be the star architect. I'm going to design the best buildings around the world, and the humbleness of my father's roots. He was a stonemason, immigrated to Canada, really, really into his life, and he said to me, "I don't mind you being an architect, but I really like you to perfect the art of working with your hands." Because he saw some of the skills I had as a youth. I was in woodworking, into construction technology, and I really loved. But he said he was encouraging me not to give up on what some of the roots are. And thank God he did that, because I traded the application into 3 affluent Canadian universities for taking on a carpentry apprenticeship, and that was unique. It's the late '80s. I graduated. There wasn't a lot of work going on, so I go down to a job site in the Niagara region and almost commit to work for free for a week so they could try me out. They were taking a chance on this young kid. I got the pouch over my shoulder. I bought a brand new hat. I got shiny boots. So holy smokes, I probably looked like the newest guy on the block. The owner of the company was there, Walsh Construction, matter of fact. Rick Walsh says, for anybody to actually get out of their house and be eager to ride your bike. I rode my bicycle and go to the site and actually look for work was enough for him to say, I think I got the right person. So he says, "Yep, can you start tomorrow?" And I went to work. And then I got to say, things went really well. I got paid the first week, by the way, so I didn't have to work for free, but I stayed for a number of years learning the art of residential construction. And residential construction, to me, I always wanted to build a house. Houses are cool. We live in them, we visit our friends, and we have, it's just fun. But along the way, as I was working in the residential field, I think it was around my second or third year apprenticeship. By then, I'd been signed as an apprentice with the Mohawk College system, and decided that I would venture out into the commercial world. Okay, there's a whole other world of commercial world, and so the story of how I got there is unique. So here I am, my third year apprenticeship. I'm working in Grimsby, Ontario. I'm working on a long-term retirement facility as superintendent, very seasoned, probably close to retirement. Pulls me aside, says, "Dean, have you ever thought about being a superintendent?" And I look at it and go, "What the hell is a superintendent?" He goes, "What I do." He goes, and I said, I think I said like nothing. White hat, walk around, tell people what to do. I go, "That sounds, here I am in that, 19, 20 years old by now, and thinking that sounds pretty cool." And, to not to be age specific, but didn't have a lot of computers. So you go to the library, right? Or you phone your friends, say, "What is a superintendent do?" So not like today's age where you can type it all in and you get it, which is really great. So I decided I would do some homework. I went, had lunch, we talked, and it was a great conversation about how it's very important to, be technically rich in experience to run projects. And I probably didn't realize that at the time, but I realize even more now when we talk later in the session, about 29 years later. So I go down to but back then you had to go to the unemployment office to actually find a job. So it's a funny story. I was in the unemployment office. I won't call out names, but I was there and I saw a listing there for an assistant superintendent. Had to have experience. Like, oh boy, I don't have that experience. And I'm thinking, okay, but I think I made a good pitch because the lady at the unemployment office had said to me, I can't refer you, but when I get up from my desk, the phone number might be available. So I took the phone number and I kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and went down to the payphone. Okay, another one, a payphone. And I called this company called Merit Contractors. And I actually got Dave Harvey, the owner of Merit Contractors, on the first call. And I'm staying at a payphone. You can imagine, I think it was like late October, November. And I'm saying, my name is Dean. I don't qualify for your posting. I said it right away, but I am an apprentice and I am looking to grow into be a superintendent. And the payphone was on Church Street in St. Catharines. And I bet you they were about a mile away, or two, maybe two. And he said, well, come on down and let's sign you up. That was pretty easy. So I wandered down the office. I shook hands. And sure enough, I was working on a King paving commercial building in Burlington. That was my first start. And it went from there. I learned the art of running projects, had great mentors along the way. And, when I finally 7 years with Merit Contractors, and I walked in Dave Harvey's office and he goes, yeah, that day is coming. We knew you were going to outgrow us. You knew you wanted to aspire to some of the largest, most complicated companies in the world. And I actually showed Dave, said, Dave, I'm thinking about going to PCL. He goes, you know what? You couldn't have picked a better company. Matter of fact, if I can help you get there, I can, but we knew this was coming. And so funny enough, I was sitting in a job at Mayor. We were building a project in at the Peace Bridge. It was a warehousing for incoming and outgoing freight. And I'm reading the E&R magazine, all the great projects PCL is doing it. And at that time, I would have read like the Scotia Plaza, Scotia Tower, Elliston doing the Sky Dome. It was all really, really exciting times. And the guys in the lunchroom make fun of me because they're all talking about stuff and I'm reading construction magazines. They go, you're a nerd. You're a construction nerd. You sit down and you just want to read what's going on in the world. And so I had a friend of mine who was working on the excavation at a PCL job in St. Catharines. It was building actually the Penn Center. And I asked him, do you think I could have an interview? And I knew Scott at the time and he got me an interview and I probably met the crustiest, oldest superintendent in the industry. But so I go into this trailer and back then there wasn't many laws around smoking and non-smoking. It felt like I was walking into like a vape shop or something. It was just like, so I meet by the gentleman by the name of Doug Organ, and he was fantastic. And I sat there for 2 hours and he grilled me on why I wanted to be a superintendent. What have I done in the past? What have I done as a carpenter? Blah, blah, blah. And I went, okay. And he makes the call to PCL while I'm in the trailer. And he says, I got this really cocky guy who's probably going to be our best super in 25 years. You should hire him. And I'm Doug, I'm in the room. Like I'm sitting here in the room. And he goes, yeah, let's just get it done now. And so I waited a few months, it was crickets. My phone didn't ring. And I get a call from a wonderful lady in HR called Lisa Cook. And Lisa says, yeah, Doug says you got to come for an interview. So, okay. So I drive out to your Ontario Street in Mississauga and I meet a whole bunch of people. It was very intimidating. I'm accelerating now and I'm going, okay, going to a company. And back then PCL did under $1 billion. Talk about 9 billion now. Our largest design build job back then was 250 million and it was at the airport. And I met a gentleman by the name of Mira Jawani. Mira was the operations manager and he was pretty tough. And we got along really well. He's that tough love kind of guy, right? And his first question was, why do I need to hire you? And so that's a trick question, right? But long story short, I ended up coming out with PCL in 1995, 96. Yeah, 29th year. Next year will be my 30th year. And it has been an incredible journey, one of monumental experience. And there's no way I would have thought back then what this industry's landscape looks like today. The amount of availability for youth. I mean, I have family that's doctors, lawyers and stuff and all kinds of things. They help me to build stuff, right? Can you come on over, give you a house inspection? Can you give me your lens? So all that exposure and experience paid off, right? And so I'm really happy with the career choice I've made.
That's amazing. what's incredible is not only have you worked here in Canada, but you've gone out to LA and you've seen just the wide tapestry of management professionals, human beings, whether it's trades through like I said, management professionals. And I think one of the things you and I've talked about in the past, which I've never heard of before, is your plan and vision years ago to build the $1 billion superintendent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just interested in that from a industry perspective. What was the genesis of that? And because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it was a fun, I mean, we had this conversation. It started out as a harmless conversation. I was actually on the golf course with my CEO, Paul Douglas. And Paul says, "Yeah, I want to grow to be this $10 billion company. And I'm getting a free pass to play Glen Abbey." So I'm already shocked I'm playing a golf course I couldn't afford to play at. And so I said, "Paul, I don't think you're going to get there." He says, he looks at me with a straight face. He says, "You don't have enough superintendents. And if you compare superintendents to like an army, you need soldiers, you need people on the ground, you need boots on ground. And we're not cultivating this in a manner where I think you might fall short because, PCL offers great employment. They offer great as an employee-owned company. They offer great retirement package. So people naturally leave early from PCL because financially they can." He drove his ball and says, "Well, go figure it out." That was the conversation. And so I said, "Okay, I can either take that, go figure it out statement, do nothing with it, or go figure it out." So I decided to go figure it out. So I did some homework and I collected a few people. Bruce Sonnenberg, vice president here in Toronto, Harmony Carter, president of People and Culture. We got together with a lovely lady who wrote a book, a paper on mentoring in PCL. And I remember exactly June of 2011, we met in the Edmonton district office and we were penciling out on a whiteboard, flat whiteboard, how to, what is the age of what does this look like? Are we doing enough in the early years to accelerate people so they have the opportunity to get to this $1 billion level? We didn't even know the $1 billion level was even coming. We were talking about the $100 million level back then. Okay, Matt, let's just put that in perspective. So then we started figuring out in PCL, well, if the $100 million job is the threshold of the company, and there isn't, not every job is $1 billion. You've got your core value of jobs, right? We discovered that our superintendent stream was getting to that level a little bit later in their career, actually in the early 50s, you want to be exact. I'm like, holy smokes, man. That means that they're either going to retire or have a very short period before retirement. We wouldn't have the runway available to us if we continue to train and grow under this model. In a completely different event, I was out for dinner one night and I pick up Forbes magazine, right? Top 40 under 40. I'm thinking, we need that. We need top superintendents under 40. So I tried to nickname the campaign 100 by 40, right? 100 million by 40 years old. But it became the Accelerated Superintendent Development Program. And so, likewise with our construction industry, ENR's top 40 under 40 and the Forbes magazine top 40 under 40, we had to have a similar model in mind that we were going to bring our superintendents, the best there is, under 40. Well, when we started that campaign, we only had one in the whole company was 39 years old, running $100 million worth of work. And so the old philosophy back then, Matt, was you had to have gray hair to run big work, right? If you have no gray hair, you haven't seen it all. And that's the whole mentality, right? First thing you do when you walk in the room goes, you have no gray hair. You didn't run it. You've never run a $100 million job. I go, it's funny how the mentality shifted over the years, right? Because there'll be a few people listening in today that'll probably have a big chuckle about that one because it really was a true story about having gray hair. So, which we call construction blonde today, by the way. So we sat down and we crafted out what kind of program do we need to get our best, top performers to that level before 40 years old. So we came up with the Accelerated Superintendent Development Program, which is a combination of, 9 to 10 years of growth that really focus on the skills to be a really great superintendent, right? So, you get 70% technical and 30% behavioral in those formidable years, right? After that, leading jobs becomes completely behavioral. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Fast forward, into 2024, 12 years later after the program's right, I've seen the cycle now of the very first field engineer graduate the program and run. So we have a handful of people now that are, in their mid to late 30s on the 100 and even $200 million projects.
Mhm.
And that number is probably close to 50, not one. So, when you think about that $100 million level being sort of threshold where you can, you measure success, 80 to $100 million job is kind of like the comfortable zone at this level where, but we want people to grow naturally. We want them to grow intentionally. We don't want to exhaust, people physically and mentally, right?
Incredible.
That's the story there. When you talk about the $1 billion superintendent, we didn't know that back then, right? So what we tacked on to that was, okay, now we got them to this level. What do we do? And then we think, okay, they're still high performing. There are top leaders, and we're talking North America. I'm not just talking one province. We're talking across the board. Let's create a high potential field leadership to complement what we've done to date. And that is a 2-year, really strategic plan of growing them, growing the superintendents into the comfort, stability, mental stability, the resiliency required, and that the exposure of being on large projects to gradually move up from the 100, 250, 500, 1 billion. And now we're talking billions with an S, right? So that's really what's happened. And it's been a tremendous successful story from a question on a golf course. Sometimes you also got to learn when you're younger to seek and follow through when an opportunity arises. Like that opportunity might have seemed very narrow, but the door opened it slightly. And so I took advantage of blowing it open.
Yeah. Yeah. I think leadership is hit on two heads there because your executive leader knew that if he made that spark, you would have the autonomy and leadership and ambition to pursue such a big task without really giving you this boxed in framework, which has intrinsically helped build your biggest asset, which is your people, versus the reactionary hiring that we sometimes see in the industry. And to have that foresight, I think it's mystifying to me. Someone who's in the people business. So I think that's incredible. And then just for the listeners too, I love how passionate you got about building the team and having the vision for the future. But I also, think it's really great. Some of the buildings that you've built, and what really hit home for me is we were talking about mentorship in one of our conversations. And there's been this stigma of, and we'll probably unpack it, but there's been this stigma of like, become a doctor, become a lawyer. And those are great jobs, those are important jobs, but they all need a place to go and they need a building to live and breathe in. And what would you say are some of the real cool dynamic projects that you've been a part of from a leadership standpoint that you're proud to share with family and friends when you walk by or hear about them?
Oh, there's so many. And now that my grandson is visiting some of them. So even just, wow. I've been very fortunate to work in the Toronto area most of my career. And when I got asked to go to LA to help build the airport, it was a great opportunity because I felt that I needed a little bit more of a lens of what happens in another environment, right? I kind of get it, but you don't really get it until you're actually there day to day. But I worked on the Niagara Falls Casino project, by 450 million back in 2003. Humber River Hospital, Niagara Hospital, RBC Center downtown with the high-rise construction. So I've been involved in institutional, recreational, hospitality, healthcare, uh, high-rise, and the last, I'd say, 10 years has been probably a focus on aviation or transportation and healthcare. Right? There are probably 3 or 4 types of projects that are really quite highly technical and a lot and need a tremendous amount of planning. I'll throw in the data center world because that happens to be new. So, data as an EV battery are, more manufacturing and really technical. Laboratory work, working at Sanofi Pasteur here in Toronto or anywhere you do laboratory work. And then there's hospitals and and airports, right? The high secure, when you get patient interaction or travel interaction, it takes a lot of, so those are they've been the funnest jobs to work on with very large teams, high stress, high performing, But when I reflect back, even when I talked to people when I was at LAX and we were doing, billing in excess of 100 million a month.
That's crazy.
And so I asked the young field engineer, and I asked her, so how did you feel? And she said to me, Steen, we knew you had our back.
Mm.
And I said, well, that's a great comment. I really appreciate that. You were always there to mentor us. You took the time to review drawings. We went over quality control. We went over safety. And that the only advice I give to anybody who's listening, if you spend the time to not just tell people what to do or ask, but explain the why part, and the reasons for doing things, and share the bad stories, because believe me, I've made some mistakes in the past. I love sharing them so someone else doesn't make the same mistake. So, if you're humble enough to do that and you realize that like the core benefit of what that really does, I have seen some of the youngest and brightest people do extraordinary things. It's sort of like what Steve Jobs says. We don't hire smart people that tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. And that's a quote that I live by, because today's world it's so connected. It's so electric. It's, the processing of information and the educational awareness, and you match that with the technical experience. It's like creating a superhuman almost. I've seen, so it wasn't very hard to determine how we were going to get to that $100 million by 40, because the people that were involved were already drinking from the fountain, right? They just give me more, give me more, give me more. The odd person might put their hand up and say, time out, I think I'm drowning. But we don't let people drown. We slow down. But I think that connection to mentoring is very, very important. And every young person I talk to, even in their formidable years later, they reflect back to the people that spent the most time helping.
Yeah, it resonates with me. I named this business after two people that mentored me when I was 18 years old, John Huggett and Chris Parker. So just on mentor, your views on getting the most out of the people you mentor.
It's a great question. Like we've talked briefly, number one thing about mentoring is that the protege has to want to be mentored. You can do all the training and coaching you want and mentoring. There's a difference between mentoring and coaching, by the way. But the people on the other end that are receiving this have to be receptive, and they have to be warm to the idea. And you got to create a relationship where you're transparent. I don't mind if a protege tells me that, hey, I don't really like that style. Great. I like to be able to
Yeah.
communicate some of the challenges they're having, but it's very important to maintain a positive approach, right? And the generations have changed. Mentoring for me back when I was in the trade was a shovel in the back of the butt, right? Kind of like get going, old school. Today, it's certainly not that. And I think recognizing the fact that we've got 6 generations of people working together now for the first time is a really, really important thing. So for coaches and mentors out there, you're going to coach and mentor a 40-year-old very different than a 20-year-old. Your styles have to be flexible and be adaptable, because people learn at different paces, and one might be highly technical, one may be highly not. So you've got to understand what the relationship's going to look like. But the most important thing I'll say to proteges is that you really got to be accountable for your career. If I said to one of my proteges, you really should read, Elevating Superintendents by Jason Schroeder, I'll throw one out for Jason, and they don't read it, lost opportunity, right? So you got to be accountable.
Yeah, like the mentor-mentee piece is owning the experience on both sides. You brought up mentoring is different than coaching. What would you say is the distinction? I'm just curious about that.
Well, first of all, I can be a coach for anybody, right? But a mentor has a truly deep, rich relationship.
Right.
And I know there are mentoring programs in different companies, and I can't say that a mentor should be selected by a protege. It needs to be a relationship.
Easy.
And when I'm mentoring somebody, there's always an element of a work and life balance, right? And I mentor both male and female and many other groups. So there's challenges that occur in the home. There's challenges that occur across the board, even before you get to work, and you got to be able to share those, right? So some of the questions I even get are, how did you do it when you're raising your family? That's a mentoring discussion. How did you travel? How did you not be home for dinner? Or how did you miss your school, your kids, first day in kindergarten? And so those are real life mentoring things. And those, they pull on the heartstrings quite a bit. But I think in a mentoring relationship, you can have those honest conversations that I don't think you get when you're just coaching, right?
That's a powerful distinction. I love that. And so, how do you see technology and innovation positively impacting our industry in a day and age where we're so connected? That you put perfectly in AI and
I get this question a lot. I actually sit on the tech committee here at both the district and the corporate level. I am a huge supporter of technology in construction. As long as it does what it's supposed to do and it's giving the results you expect to receive. It has to be intentional. A lot of people are chasing the shiny penny mat, right? Right. It's cool. It looks great. Like we had Boston Scientific on the project with Spot the Dog robotics, right? So here's this dog crawling around doing layout and literally Spot the Dog. And I'm thinking, oh, this is cool, but that's not ready yet, right? And we did it. We did it at actually 160 front on Ed Sevier's job. And so here's Spot in here. So we seen the evolution of robotic and AI and, how it's converging or how it's coming together. Some of the best technologies, the simplest technology. Technology is meant to support what we do. We're not a tech company. We're a construction company. Sometimes I have to tell people that. We only make revenue when we put work in place. But there is a real positive side to having the right technology, whether it's drones and drone scanning ability, whether it's Autodesk suites or a number of products are available. The transformation has been incredible. The ability to have connectivity at the site, and all sites now are designed with connectivity, and have an iPad with so much information at your fingertips is essential. There's no way to build anymore without iPad. We've actually went down to Cupertino and met with Apple and talked about construction-based iPads. Apple's even been connecting with us on a commercial side saying, how can we help you? Well, I went through how do we use devices in construction? Because when you figure that there's, 700 or 800 projects a year running at PCL and there's, 10 to 15 iPads per site, it doesn't take long to figure out as a corporation, that's a lot of hardware. And if my business is selling hardware, I want to sell more hardware. I mean, and so we've been doing a lot of testing with the Apple Watch as well. And the Apple Watch and even in terms of safety, technology has just been in the forefront. There's so many slab edge detection devices. I think the whole industry is really benefiting for it. But I will restate the fact that it has to give you a return, right?
yeah,
You return on your investment because some technology, although it sounds really great and it operates and it takes a lot of people power in the background to make it happen. And owners of that, that hire us are aware that, we don't want these enormous staff on the job just to suffice a program.
yeah. If it commercially makes sense and allows you to build more without distraction and chasing that shiny object.
Years ago in a meeting, I tell everybody, put your phone down. Then I asked a bunch of field engineers, why do you have your phone out? And it's funny, here's what one said, sometimes we don't know what you're talking about and we look it up. And they go, that's really good.
Yeah. That's smart.
There's young field engineer, young field coordinator. They don't want it. They're in a room with some seasoned. And they said, team, sometimes we feel embarrassed asking the term you're using. I go, oh, that's unique. So now I know that they're out. I said, do you mind if I'm in the meeting, ask you to look something up while in the meeting? I mean, let's do it. Let's do the fingertip stuff and let's make it happen. They go, oh, we'd love that. So I allow them to have their phones down because I know they're not doing stuff they shouldn't be. I understand why they're doing it now because I asked the question, right? So you got to roll with how people want to do their work, right? I lean on the youthfulness of us to develop my own tech strategy. I'll put the youngest, brightest people on my project in a meeting room and said, here's the challenge. We want to de-risk quality control. What technology can do that? And I tell you, Matt, it's electric watching these. They just go. And so then I started assigning a team lead and a captain. And so now I end up with this high energy, innovative searching because they're really dialed into technology. So let's just use that energy to come up with something really good.
That's incredible. Like given the size and scale of PCL, that there's this opportunity and landscape to bring a level of innovation and entrepreneurship and like transcend leadership's own thoughts and biases to learn from those working with them.
And man, if you're not innovating, you're not growing.
Yeah, 100%.
I bet you the toaster was not a toaster 40 different times. A relative in the .com world, and he says, Dean, failure's good, but fail forward.
That's lessons learned, and sometimes it's not always best being first, right?
Well, that's a great story because there's a lot of when I was coming up through about 10, 15 years ago, we had gone to market about LED lighting in construction, right? So we were all incandescent or compact fluorescence, and like it's $12 a foot for incandescent lighting. LED must be cheaper. It wasn't even in the marketplace then, right? So here I put a business model together, and then me and the executive sat down and said, you know what, we're on the bleeding edge. It's already going to get there. Let's just ride it out and help the industry get there. Why do we want to invest all this money if the industry is moving there, but they can use our experience to make the product better? So rather than being on the bleeding edge, we got on the leading edge. $0 invested, but we got what you see today is the LED lighting in construction, both at a 120 volt and 24 volt scenario. So you don't always have to be, everybody would like to be first, but you don't need to be first. I'm glad you brought that up.
It's genius. What are some of the challenges? I mean, we've talked about a lot of them, don't get me wrong. But outside of what we've discussed, what do you think are some of the challenges ahead that you see in the construction development industry?
Construction is very much a hands-on business. And the number one concern for many constructors at any level is the resources of people. Starting from the apprenticeship, actually, let's just go right back. Starting from the parents of their children that are graduating to be comfortable with the fact that and supportive that their son or daughter is going to go into the construction industry and create an enormous amount of opportunity and wealth for themselves. I've had a lot of discussions with high school guidance teachers, I've been involved in both the Toronto School Board and the Brampton School Board, and some great programs like the STEP program that LV Morrow runs on a TDSB. These are really important to help connect the dots because we will need a lot of people. Yeah, we got a little bit of a flattening now happen with the change in the interest rates, but that storm is coming. And so I'm seeing a really youthful construction trade presence. So what's important about that is you need good leadership. So, you talk about the mentoring at my level, the mentoring at the trade level is so important. Learning the actual craft of doing something with your hands, doing it not only at great quality, but doing it safely. Like safety is number one. You got to get, there's no compromising on safety. And I feel that great mentors or great foremen or great leaders are always safety forward, right? That the protection of your people cannot be compromised, especially when you've got young, just graduated adults that are new to this field and they're in a busy working environment. So that awareness of how to work safe comes from a good coach and a good mentor, right? So it will be people. There's no doubt that we are all going to be competing for the same workforce. And judging by what I see coming down the pipeline here, especially even in the Toronto market, we're on the precipice of having like 3 multi-billion-dollar hospitals in Ontario be built at the same time. So 2 projects I know of right now will absorb 5,000 people. 2 projects will take 5,000 people. We're already seeing that even manufacturing and trade communities their thresholds are not only in the people world, but also financing world are getting to the bubble. We bring in new sub trades and new people, but we still have the same common challenge. That's the resource of the tradesperson, right?
And one of the things you talked about too is not only from a trade perspective, but the promotion of the career path to general foreman, I think is something that may be a blind spot in the industry.
It is. We think we can get the resources on the project, but they have to be led by really good people. And so there's a great opportunity for trades people to move up into leadership positions, whether it's a lead hand or a foreman or a general foreman. And they come with, great incentives, but we see there may not be the appetite to take on that responsibility. But for those that want to take on the responsibility, that needs to happen because that rate in today's world is some of the constraints on the size of the projects and the size of the crews. Having enough people to lead those people properly.
Again, we've talked about a lot of really great points here. Just such a natural conversation, given your passion for the industry and experience, Dean, which has just been awesome and refreshing. What do you feel the construction industry does really well today?
Well, that's a great question and probably have a couple of great answers. Well, first of all, I think we do a really great job at working safe. Definitely raise the standards in the industry, not just BCL, but many of our counterparts, because we all sit in the same committees of ensuring that we protect our number one asset. I believe in my mind that we have the best quality of apprenticeships in the industry. When you mention that I'll use a local Ontario bred Red Seal tradesperson, it's a flag that goes as far deep as Florida and the Midwest. Like they're aware of the Canadian apprenticeship and training, whether it's in a union or non-union environment. Our unions here in the GTA do a tremendous job and I visited many of these facilities, and these facilities would parallel an education in academics. They're just so far advanced, both in technical and technology and the support that system gives. So I think we do a really great job at making sure that the availability, I say availability because people have to be accountable to go get the training, but the availability of that, all the way from crane operators to heavy equipment to general labor and concrete finishing. I can go through a whole list of, I feel that we do a really good job training people for the industry and staying on top of standards as well.
I think that's good for the listeners to hear too, especially anyone considering a career shift into the trades world, knowing that there's this prestigious, learning facility and it's well received, not just in Canada, but you could write your ticket essentially to work elsewhere and get well traveled with that kind of background.
Yeah, there are many times where I'm traveling and I've been on an airplane and I see somebody with a hard hat and a backpack and I ask them, where are you going? Because I'm curious. I ran into two or three people traveling from the Maritimes, coming through Toronto, going to a project in Northern Alberta, right? And I asked them, "Why'd you travel?" And they said, "Well, first of all, for the money and for the opportunity." And I said, "What skill do you have?" And they said, "Well, I was this level welder, right? Like they had the highest ticket in welding." So it just goes to show you that the level of training and standards got exported all the way across the country to a place where they can really perform their craft, right? And be well compensated for it. So let's not be shy. All trades are well into the six figures in salary, plus great pensions and great support. So
Sounds bright and optimistic. I appreciate those shares, Dean. And so why, we've touched on a lot because everything's just intrinsically folded into the construction development industry. But just on a last note before we end this fantastic episode is why should youth consider a career in construction development?
can I say because I did?
Yeah.
I think more than ever, the industry has really nailed it that we have to be more intentional about bringing youth in. It's got to be that we're there. We're there now. We understand it. And the opportunities are opening more and more, right? I see more discussions at the high school level. I see the likes of myself and many others in the high school, college level. I'm even hearing about them at the elementary school level, the grade sixes learning about construction. So as long as we continue on that forward path and really appreciate and give praise to the men and women that go out there and get a craft and hone their skills and form a career, it's going to be so rewarding. I talk to so many in the industry that are so glad they went this direction. So I think the strategies moving forward will nail down what we need to do.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today, Dean. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and let's see what happens next few years. Thank you.